Hello, everybody. Sunday Adelaja here. Welcome to another program today, which we have been continuing for some time now. Are Black African people cursed? Are Black African people cursed? That is the question we're asking. Are Black African people cursed? So, are Black people cursed? Are Black African people cursed? Is there any curse on Black people? Why is it that Black people are the most backward? Why is that the Black people are the most primitive, you could say, in civilization right now? Why is it that the Black people are the most technologically behind race and in every direction? So what is it that is wrong with the Black people? Are Black people cursed? Well, we already looked into the question of curse, but right now we are going to keep on looking into the questions of what made Black people who they are, and why, and the greatness of the Black people, and the fact that the Black people who are cursed cannot attain the height and the height of civilization and advancement that Black people had achieved in the past. So today I'm going to keep on making that point, and I'm going to be talking today on Egypt. We all read about Egypt, we know about Egypt, but I want to talk about the ancient Egypt here, the ancient Egypt. And this is Egypt that was before the biblical, in the sense of the Jacob going down to Egypt with his family. This is before the Egypt of Joseph. So this is the ancient Egypt. And that ancient Egypt was Black. That's the point I want to prove to all of us today, that ancient Egypt was Black, and Egypt is a civilization of Black people. Nobody denies the civilization of Egypt, but only not too many people know that that civilization was created by the Black people. Not too many people even think about it, and people don't even mention it to them. And it's not even in the history books that Egypt was created by Black people. But if you study, of course, if you study anthropology, if you study history, specifically the ancient history, if you study the history of the of Africa, if you study the history of middle belt, or middle, what they call it, of Asia and that area, you will be able to see Middle East. You'll be able to see what we are talking about. That that Black people played a big role in forming all civilizations of the world. But Egypt is much more evident and much more clear. Is without any argument that it was Black. But let's go to it today. Because it's much more difficult to prove to people that Black people brought civilization to Europe than to prove that Egypt was Black. So Egypt is there much more evidence that it was Black, and even Europe now, it's easy to prove that it was Black. That the Blacks brought civilization there. The same thing with America, with ancient America. But we'll talk about Egypt right now, and then we'll go to other parts of the world. So. So the topic of today is ancient Egypt, the civilization of Black Africans. Okay, I've got to my notes. Egypt was the start, and I tell you that I've written a book about this. And the book, if you want to get it, is How Africans Brought Civilization to Europe. How Africans Brought Civilization to Europe. Here, you have all the documents or the references and everything. But here, I will try my best also to provide as much references as possible. So it's going to be a teaching that is based on historical facts, and I'm going to be quoting a lot of scientific sources. So Egypt was the star of the ancient world. It shone to the whole world so much that it attracted attention from everywhere, and the greatness of ancient Egypt will be considered below. But now I want to dwell on the matter of principle in our study of Egypt, namely, who were the ancient Egyptians? So that's what we're doing. Who were the ancient Egyptians? Because of its attractiveness as a subject of civilization, some latter or civilizations wanted to attribute to themselves the origins and reasons for such development of ancient Egypt. You do know that at a point, Egypt was regarded as European also. It is now that it's regarded as Arabic, but it is actually, it used to be European. That's why you have the second largest town in Egypt called Alexandria, even up to now, because that it used to be called Alexandria, the king of Rome, because he built that city. I mean, he expanded it and made it civilized. Egypt was considered to be both an offspring of the white European people, and an Asian offspring, you see. So Asians sometimes claim it to be their own, and Europeans also claim it to be their own. But before all of them, who built the Egypt and the pyramids that we are seeing today? In this issue, we want you to base our judgment on the actual evidence. So I'm going to be basing my arguments on scientific, real evidence, and consequently consider the Egyptian people to be what they really were. Now, there is a professor, he's dead now, this professor, John Henry Clark. John Henry Clark is, dedicated his whole life to study the question of black race. And he refers to the ancient Egyptians as an African people, noting that black and brown color of their skin, of the skin of the old people, the ancient people who lived there. And he did a whole research, and we have a whole lot of documents on the fact that the skin of the people who lived in Egypt were black and brown, like my own. So that is the people; those are the people that were found in ancient Egypt before the Arabs came and before the Europeans came. Actually, the Arabs came much more later. Before then, we have the Europeans. So to control a people, that's what John Henry Clark says. To control a people, you must first control what they think about themselves. This is talking about black people and how they regard their history and culture. That the reason why European people who colonized Africa and sold Africans to slavery, the reason why they would not allow black Africans to know who they are and what they have done in the past is to control their history and culture. And that way they will be able to control their mind. So what he's saying, to control the people, you must control what they think about themselves and how they regard their history and culture. And that's why it's important what I'm doing right now, to be able to change the thoughts of Africans about themselves, so that Africans will be able to see themselves in a brighter light, in a better light, so that they will be able to see their history better and their culture better. And when your conqueror makes you ashamed of your culture and your history, he needs not to build prison walls and no chains to hold you, because he has already imprisoned you. So then that's what we are doing. By studying the history of the black race and the black people and the African people, we are opening the door of that prison. We are setting the black people free, and we are removing the chains from not from their hands right now, but from their mind. We are opening their mind. We are opening their horizon. We are expanding their imagination. We are causing them to be proud of themselves, to dream, and to know that they are not worse than any other nation, and that they have done great things before. They can do it now, and they are still going to rule the world again, because the last shall be first. They used to be first at first, and they will be first again, because this last shall be first. Life and history goes in rotation. So the people who used to be first are now last, and the people who used to be last are now first. So that's just the way history goes around. So this professor, John Clark, also points out that people with light skin color began to move into the region of Egypt much later, because they were admiring the civilization created by these black, dark-skinned people. Egypt, and you will see it in their documents. The white people who went to Egypt and studied it actually wrote it down, all their admiration and their conclusions. Egyptologist Jeffrey Parsons refers to the Egyptian culture as genuinely African in its origin and development, you see. So these are not just people from the street claiming this, and these are not just black people saying this. Even white historians and people who have done studies on this, they say that the origin and development of Egypt was developed and started by African people. For example, Egypt had a matriarchal system that was alien to Greeks, but it was a common practice in African communities. So that's practice of matriarchy and matriarchal leadership in the family was very much practiced in Nubia, which is the modern day Sudan, and it was also practiced to a large extent in the early Ethiopia. So it was that same practice that was practiced in Egypt. So it was a common culture because it was a common people, the same people that migrated from Nubia to Ethiopia in the north, and in the east, and to Egypt in the north. In particular, the historian Herodotus, and this Herodotus lived long time ago during the Greek and during the Greek time, noted that, because he's a Greek historian, noted that Egyptian women engaged in professional work and trade while their husbands stayed at home and weaved. Daughters, not sons, were supposed to provide the parents with food and housing when they were old. This historian Diodorus of Sicily, this another one, another historian. Historian Diodorus of Sicily described the matriarchal system of Egypt both among ordinary people and in the royal families. According to the marriage contract, the husband belonged to his wife, and the couple agreed that the man should obey the woman in everything. The royal power in Egypt was inherited in the maternal line, and that was not European practice. It was practice of coming from the middle ancient Africa. The Egyptians were not just an African people, as the scientists tell us. From the beginning of the first Kamite dynasty and through the greater part of its dynastic period, African people with dark complexions, full lips. You see, this is the description of people who lived in Egypt. Black people with dark complexion, dark skin, full lips like my own, broad noses. These are not Arab and they are not Europeans, and tightly curled hair were fully and overwhelmingly dominant in both the general population and the royal families. The hieroglyphic representations to be found on the temples, those are like writing, right? The drawing, the kind of writing, in the temples and monuments of Egypt prove the advanced status of the Negro race. Because when you see the writing, you will see that it's the writing that is coherent with what was ancient black, and also the drawing that were there were of black people with all the features of a black person. As a result of his studies, scientist Martin Delaney noted the fact that the earliest settlers, builders of the pyramids, sculptures of the Sphinx, this is the biggest pyramid there in Egypt, and original god kings pharaohs were blacks of the Negro race. In accordance with the most ancient historical documents on Egypt, the works of the historian Maniphon, Palermo Stone, Zakar List. So these were all the references that are pointing to the fact that the people who built the pyramids were black people. The Royal Papyrus of Torino, the formation of a single Egyptian state occurred about the second half of the 4th millennium BC. So according to that book, that the 4th centuries before Christ, Egypt was united into one. Egypt used to be like two countries, but it was one country but different part of the country, like two countries. They don't used to use the word countries, territories, and they were united 400 years before Christ, 4,000 years before Christ. The forces of the black land of Upper Egypt, so the black people in the south, they used to call that part Upper Egypt, probably during the reign of Nameh, the historical king often equated with the legendary Menes, had completed the task of coupling Upper Egypt, or uniting Upper Egypt in the south with Lower Egypt in the north, essentially the delta, into a single unified state. Upper Egypt, which is the southern part of Egypt, was located in the south and was inhabited exclusively by black Africans, because the Lower Egypt, you had people coming from other places there. But Lower Egypt was located in the north, in the delta of the Nile River. According to inscriptions in the Egyptian temple of Horus at Edfu, the civilization was brought to Egypt from the south by a detachment of invaders led by King Horus. So this indicates, so they wrote history, they were writing inscriptions, and it is from that inscription we could see and get this history from. This indicates the prevailing and determining position of the civilization created by black Africans in the south, and their exceptional role in creation of the ancient Egypt. Although the history of the struggle for the unification of two lands is lacking in many details, it is highly significant that Nameh, the first lord of the two lands of Egypt, came from the black-skinned south, because it was the greater part of the civilization. Egyptologist Michael Rice emphasizes the dominance of Upper Egypt, stressing the fact that it was from the south that the most enduring influences in Egyptian society came, and without doubt most of its greatest leaders were Southerners too. Southerners are the black Egyptians. Throughout a long history, Egypt constantly needed to return to the south to refresh herself and to restore her institutions, even perhaps her soul, when the weight of years of external pressures laid too heavily upon her. Michael Rice further noted that the culture which grew and flourished in the Nile Valley was wholly autochthonous. Black Africans, it must certainly be acknowledged, were the true ancestors of the pharaohs in all their majesty and power. So those pharaohs that they were talking about, they used to be black people. Egypt's decline began when these essential African characteristics became diluted by incursions from outside. So the incursions were coming from the north, because the north was closer to Asia and the north was closer to Europe. In a similar way, the preeminent British Egyptologist of the late 19th and early 20th century, William Matthew Flinders Petrie, noted, "It is remarkable how renewed vitality has always come into Egypt from the south. Each of the great stages of Egyptian history seems to owe its new energy to a southern conquest." That is the black. Even the Egyptian term for the royal power means the man who came from the south. That's how they call their kings. The man who came from the south, southerner. Historian Chancellor Williams points to the black south of Africa as the real source of Egypt's wealth, as well as that of Egypt's civilization. The gold mines were there, as were the vast stones quarries, copper and tin mines. Here were most of the papyrus plants from which the blacks invented paper and built the first and finest boats. Here in the south was all the ivory and the only source of the then prized ostrich feathers. In short, Egyptian foreign trade depended almost entirely on southern part of Egypt, which is Ethiopia, or which was called Ethiopia at that point. Examining the development of civilization in Africa, it is very important to understand the order that was present in the history of this region. For example, formation of the early kingdom of the Ta-Seti, which was located in the Lower Nubia, preceded the creation of a unified Egyptian kingdom. So Lower Nubia, like I said, the Nubia is Sudan today. Lower Nubia is South Sudan. That is these people of South Sudan who moved to Egypt and created the civilization and of Egyptian civilization. Most likely there was the residence of the first Egyptian dynasty. Thanks to recent studies, it became known that only pharaohs were buried in the great tombs of Ta-Seti. It should also be pointed out that while Namer is generally regarded by modern historians as Egypt's first true monarch, he likely saw himself as the culmination of an historical epoch rather than the beginning of it. You see, like I said yesterday, that we have people moving from Sudan, or from Nubia, to the east, to the south, to the north, and to the west. And some of the people who moved to the west are the Yorubas, and they still refer themselves to the fact that they come from that area, from the east, from Sudan. Namer was the heir to thousands of years of African achievement and assumed charge of an already advanced and well-evolved society. Historian Diodorus of Sicily confirms that the ancient Egyptians took from the black Ethiopians their erratic writing, you see. It is the writing, that's why they're able to connect the two, because the writing of the Egyptians was coming from the Ethiopian writings, and their sculpture and a number of other secrets, laws, and veneration of rulers as gods. And up to now in Yoruba land, you still see a lot of rulers that were venerized as gods. Even the deities, what we call deities today in Africa, in Nigeria, like Ogun, Shango, all those things, that all culture came from Nubia. And it went to Egypt, it went to East Africa, it went to Ethiopia, it went to South Africa, it went to West Africa. And the Ethiopians themselves initially viewed Egypt as their colony. Can you imagine it? The Ethiopians used to look at Egypt as their colony. That is, they used to see it as their extension, as the place that they controlled. And like I explained yesterday as well, that the pyramids that were built in Egypt were actually first of all built in Nubia. And it is in Nubia that the art itself was perfected. And later on, when they immigrated to Egypt, they started repeating it there, and they took it to another level in Egypt. But in Nubia, it was the first place where pyramids were built, and that's why you have even more copies, more varieties of pyramids up to today, still standing in Nubia or in Sudan area, and more of them than in Egypt. The ancient Greek philosopher Theophrastus notes that the knowledge of the Ethiopians exceeded the knowledge of India and Egypt. See, this was a long time ago. The Greek recorders, the Greek records indicate that Pythagoras learned from the Egyptian priests only what they had learned from the Ethiopians. Wow. So you see, most of the history is known that Pythagoras learned from Egyptians. But they don't tell you that the Egyptians are black people. And they don't tell you that the Egyptians also learned and took their knowledge from Ethiopians. As noted above, Egypt was characterized by a matriarchal system that was characteristic of the Ethiopian civilization. And I told you that when we're talking about Ethiopia, we are not talking about the current country that is called Ethiopia. The current country that is called Ethiopia is just a part of that dynasty that was Ethiopia, and which retained that name. But Ethiopia was, the Nubia, the civilization of black people, which had its center at Nubia, in its modern-day Sudan, before they all scattered all over. Interestingly, the Egyptians did not call themselves Egyptians. This term was invented by the Greeks, you see. So the modern Egypt that we know is a new name, and its Latin form sounds like Egypt. The Egyptians themselves called their country, they used to call themselves Kem or Ham, which literally means black country. You see? So it was regarded as black land, the land of the black. That is how they used to call their country. So that part of Egypt used to be called black country. The ancient inhabitants of Egypt called themselves Kemi, Kamita, Kamit, which means black people. And if you in somewhere in Psalms, you will also see that Egypt is always being referred to as Hamland, or the land of Ham, the land of black people. Kamita, Kemi. So that is what some people call Ham, but it's not the same Ham like in Genesis, because that Ham, yes, it is still connected to that Ham, but the reason why they are calling it Ham is not because Ham himself was there, but because his descendants inhabited the place. And one of the descendants of Ham, that Bible character, or in that Genesis, was Cush. So it is because they are all, and it was not only Cush who went there. Mizrami, I will say the name their son. Mizraim also moved there. So because they are all children of Ham, that is why they call that land Ham land, or black people land. According to the Bible, Egypt was inhabited by the descendants of Ham, the son of Noah. Mizraim, which is the son of Ham, is associated with Egypt. Even today, for people in Middle East, the word Mizraim means Egypt, and Mizraim's brother was Cush, you see. So both of them went to that territory, whose name, as noted above, is also associated with Ethiopia, meaning black. A historian, Egyptologist, and anthropologist, Sheikh Anta Diop, claims that the inhabitants of ancient Egypt were Negroes or blacks. These scientists, who received a master's degree and doctorate degrees from the universities of Paris, in particular, refers to Herodotus, who repeatedly insisted on the Negro nature of the Egyptians and described them as blacks. The French Egyptologist Gaston Maspero summarized the opinions of all ancient writers concerning the Egyptians, that the Egyptians belong to the African race. Therefore, we have assured ourselves in regard to the following aspect of the Asian civilization, or ancient Egypt. In regards to ancient Egypt, what are the facts? Black Africans held high positions of power in Egypt. Black Africans from the southern part of Africa brought Egypt to new stages of its development. Ancient Egyptians themselves were an African people and had dark skin, and called themselves the land of black people, the land of black-skinned people. That is how Egypt used to be called. Whew, wow. So if you want, you could do more studies on this, or you could read my book. And in my book, you have references where you could go to and read more of this history, that the Egypt was black, was a country of black people. And the name of my book is How Africans Brought Civilization to Europe. So tomorrow I will definitely continue this topic, but before then, please go and share the message. Share the message with your friends and family members. And after sharing it, you might want to also join our mentorship program and go and learn some things for yourself. And the way to do that is to go to sundayadelajablog.com/mentorship. If you want to follow us to Africa, to rebuild a great Africa, go to sunday@elijahblog.com/Africa, /Nigeria. And if you want to get my books, you could also go there, sunday@elijahblog.com/books, or you could get them on Amazon, or you could read them for free on Kindle Unlimited. And if you want to come to Ukraine, you want to come to be with us and to HMT, maybe not to Ukraine this time, but you just want to come for History Makers training, then you are welcomed. Just write to hmt@godembassy.org, or you go to sunday@elijahblog.com/hmt. So thank you so much for your time. We are going to show you a video now, and the video is going to confirm the fact that we have spoken about, that this ancient Egypt was black. And so we'll see you tomorrow. Here we go with the video.
We are the Kemetu, the black people of Kemet, the black land. My children, we the people of Tawi are the people of Kemet, the black land. We are Kemetu, the black people of the black land. Do you not see us?
I am the Nsutbiti, what you call Pharaoh, King Mentuhotep of the black peoples of Kemet. I have reunited the two lands. I am the son of Intef, a black man, and Ya, a black woman. How can you say I am not a black man? Can you not see me?
How can you not see that we are black people? We have been kissed by Ra and made black like the soil of Tammany, our beloved land. See us.
Why do you say we are not black people? Why would you take from us the very thing that we are? Why do you spread Isfet? Why do you say these lies?
But we are not the white Tamu. We are Kemet too, the black people of the black land Kemet.
You wish for the world to believe that we did not create the craft of the written word, or that we did not create the science of numbers that you call mathematicals. This because we are black.
They speak my truth.
They tell you we are Tamil, white people, but that we are partly Asian. Look upon me, my black brothers and sisters. We come from Yao, the old country, Ta Neter, the land of God, what you call Afrique, from the foothills of the mountain of the moon, where God happily dwells, the beginning of the Nile, Lake Happy.
This black man served his queen, the wife of our God, the Christians call to Amen, the granddaughter of the queen of queens, Takasheti. She is the truest queen of the black land, Amos Nefertari, living forever.
I am the wife of God, Amen. Look upon my black skin, you who are Kemet, the black people of Kemet, the black land. Tamari, the beloved united two lands. Tawi, over which I rule. It is my black sons who expel the foreigners. Do not say this thing that I am a white woman.
The black families of the south have expelled the foreigners. Kemet, the black land is free again. We who are made black by Ra are once again free in the black land. Praises to Amen.
A time will come when they will say we are black because we are cursed. Then they will say we were never black at all.
We are not cursed. We are black because Ra looks upon us with his love.
Kem Kanti, Lord of the perfect black amongst the imperishable stars, I am as he.
Jejef Tura, he has made us skin. Jejef Tura, he has made us black as noon, the primeval waters. This is how we know we are his children, the firstborn of Ra, his chosen ones, made black and perfect in the image of God.
One day the white savages will come and they will oppress us here in Kemet, the black land.
We will go to the south, to the old country, to Yao, up into Afrique from which we came.
The Tamil whites will take our science of numbers and our science of letters, our Inshterra, the words of God, and they will spread falsehoods about us. But now we are as the Neteru happy. The Insutviti has us to build for him. We have no need of slaves. Slaves cannot do what we do. We are free in our own land, the black land. It is we who united the two lands, Tawi. It is we who are beloved of this country, Tamari. We, the Kemet, the black people of the black land, Kemet. It was our black forebearers who taught us to know Necher, God. He who judges the white skins will call him Osiris. To us he is God, Hosea, Lord of the perfect black. He and he alone is the resurrection and the life. God, our Savior. He is the Lord of salvation.
And the she, Oset, the wife of the Lord, mother of his only begotten son, Heru, born of a virgin birth. Only by he can you reach the Father. The Halebu, the Greeks, the Tamil, the whites, they learned of these things when they came amongst us. They took this knowledge and they created this. He is Unlofer, the great word, the Lord of life. The Tamil wanted to be him, so they created this. For the Halebu, the Greeks, for the Tamil, the whites, for themselves they created this. Hosea is the Lord of eternal life. It is he who bringeth the departed forth by day.
I am the queen of queens. I am tired. I have ruled this world alongside my husband, the God, omnipotent, a black man. We bore the world 3 sons. One whom decreed that God is one only. Aten, and his wife Nefertiti. His body touched unto Aaron, restored God to his rightful place. The town white said he is fair like them, but behold, he is black as all his people to come too.
My king is Cam like me, black. The whites are children of sedition, the father of lies.
My children in Africa, my children in America, my black children all over the world, we are Kemet, the black people, we are one.